This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us this morning. We are now joined by Senator John Boozman. He is in our Springdale studios. Always good to be with him. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, Roby. Thank you as always for having me, and it's good to be with you.
Let's talk a little bit about health care, but before we do, let's talk about health. And I want to hear a little bit of how you are recovering from your recent heart surgery. I know that was a very serious issue for you. If you could just give our viewers and listeners a little bit of an update. How are you feeling and what's your current prognosis?
No, I'm doing great. You know, I was pretty sick 3 or 4 years ago, and about a third of the time they have to go in and kind of tweak the procedure. And so I was one of those lucky third. But I'm fine. You know, I'm blessed. Now, once I'm well from this, which I will be very, very shortly, I'll be totally well. And so I'm excited about that. And I've kind of been putting this off for the last year and a half. And so it's finally time to do it. And the good news is the Lord has blessed me, and appreciate all the prayers and well wishes of so many throughout the state, and thinking about me. But I'm doing great.
All right, well, that's good to hear, and thank you for sharing that with us, and we are glad that you're doing well. Let's talk about the Graham-Cassidy health bill here. So obviously it's been a dominant topic of conversation this past week in Washington, D.C. and back here in Arkansas. Let's look at a couple of provisions of it. Let's begin with, first of all, you are a yes vote on this. Talk to me a little bit about why you are supportive of this bill.
Well, I ran on repealing and replacing Obamacare. This doesn't do it all, but it's a good step in the right direction. I'm very excited about taking the dollars from Obamacare and pushing it out to the states, letting our governors, who are tremendous innovators, as we've seen with the Arkansas Works program, let them go to work and come up with some solutions. So again, I think it's the right direction and something that a lot of momentum is building in the Senate over.
You are obviously talking a little bit about the flexibility that this bill would give to states like Arkansas,
Yes.
really all states. To some, though, this is going to create 50 different versions of health insurance, which is not exactly working across state lines per se. But so how is that not going to complicate and confuse things for people? Why do you feel that's a better approach?
Well, we've had this, till Obamacare, that was the way things were. And so it's not something that is insurmountable in any reason. Even now, there's some discrepancy among the states, as we see with the program that we're doing in Arkansas that's very unique. So I don't see that as, people bring that up, but I don't see that as something that is negative at all. The fact that we're going to have 50 different experiments, probably it won't be anywhere near 50, because very shortly people will be looking at the states that are working, that are providing the most care and doing it in the most cost-efficient manner, and then you'll have people, mimicking whatever they're doing.
Well, just to play a little devil's advocate with you, pre-Obamacare, there was a lot of complaining about health care being so different across so many different states, so that argument may actually come back. Let's talk about the financial impact to Arkansas. By a report done by Avalier, a health consulting group, says that Arkansas might lose as much as $6 billion over the next 7 years in terms of some of the funding that's coming through the existing program. If you take $6 billion out of the Arkansas economy, don't you think that's going to be a pretty negative hit?
No, again, I have all the confidence in the world in the governor. They've looked at this. In fact, we're blessed in Arkansas. The team that he's put together is one of the premier teams in the country. And so, they've had tremendous input into this bill, and they feel like that the funding is going to be fine. We won't have the 10% state match, which is worth a ton of money in the future. We'll have the flexibility so that they can take those dollars and not be dictated by Health and Human Services, but through the legislature and the governor can decide how to use those dollars, and they feel like they can use it much more cost effectively than the guidelines that they're currently having to use.
Let's talk about pre-existing conditions. This is something that would be applicable to you with your heart condition. For many people, they are worried that there's going to be too much flexibility to the states in terms of pre-existing conditions, that their premiums could as much as quadruple, if not more, if there's not some sort of mandate about accepting pre-existing conditions without raising premium prices. How do you address that, particularly with the knowledge of what you have? I mean, if your insurance premiums were to go up 4 times or 5 times what they are now, I have to think that'd be pretty detrimental. You could see how that would be a pretty negative impact for a lot of Arkansans that make less money.
Well, that would certainly be detrimental, and then becoming uninsurable would be detrimental, where you couldn't find insurance regardless of the price. So again, Governor Hutchinson, his team has assured us that they will do the necessary things, taking the money that they're going to get for high-risk pools. There's a number of different ways to go about that, and there's some states that prior to Obamacare really did a very, very good job in that direction. That's something that I support wholeheartedly. I understand, as you said, not only through myself, but also as being an optometrist, an eye doctor, dealing with people that were in this situation through the years. The good news is, though, that I think that the vast majority of the people of our state, the vast majority of the people of our nation, understand how important that is now, and that'll be something that we'll all be committed to make sure that are protected.
Well, right now, though, you guys could write into this federal law, this Graham-Cassidy bill, you could stipulate that pre-existing conditions are off limits. You could state that presently. Why not do that?
Yes, sir. My understanding is that it really doesn't deal with that. The concern is the possibility of a state, because this does give the states lots of flexibility, the states actually asking for waivers that would affect that.
Let's talk about another aspect of the controversy surrounding this bill, and that is that it does not look like it's going to go through the regular order process, something that Senator John McCain said he still wants to see. Are you concerned about it not going through the regular order process? It's not going to get analyzed as thoroughly. There's not going to be as much opportunity for amendments. There's not going to be as much debate and discussion as there could be about this particular measure. Should it be on a fast track like it is?
Well, we're in a situation where we've been talking about this for the last 7 or 8 years. And so it's not like healthcare is just something that's come up and there hasn't been tremendous discussion about all aspects of it. This bill has been hanging out there for a long, long time. It's gained momentum lately after the failure of the other route to go. But again, this is something I think that has been vetted. It's something that has been discussed at length, particularly in the last 6 months, either in our conference as a group discussing. I was part of a smaller group that discussed health care at least once a week, sometimes much more than that, and most members were. And so I think that it has been vetted. What I'm excited about this bill is it's come from the bottom up. The governors, are the ones that are pushing this now. The legislatures, people that are fighting the battle in the states, with Health and Human Services now trying to implement the mess that we've got now, and it truly is a mess. Right now, you've got a third of the U.S. Senate, as far as Democrats, that have embraced a single-payer system. Evidently, they don't feel like Obamacare is working. So, it's something that has to be fixed. I think that there's plenty of knowledge about it, and I'm excited that many of our governors are on board.
Well, you have mentioned the governor, you've mentioned other states' governors, you've mentioned Health and Human Services officials at the federal and the state level, state legislators. But when you look at some of the groups within the healthcare system, insurance companies, hospitals, doctors, the AARP, some of the patient-centered groups, they are all coming out opposing this measure. Have you talked with anyone within the healthcare system that is supportive of this?
Robbie, I talked to all kinds of people within the healthcare system, and the people that you mentioned are the same ones that came out, with such enthusiasm about Obamacare. They're the ones that were promising that we would save $2,500 per family. Instead, the average family now is paying $3,500 more than it used to. They were the ones that were talking about, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. Obamacare was going to solve all of the problems. And as I mentioned earlier, the Democrats now figured out that it's not, and they're fleeing from it, going into a single-payer socialistic type of situation. So no, I think it's something that, again, I'm not concerned about them at all.
Last question for you. What do you predict will happen next week? You think there'll be a vote on this Graham-Cassidy measure? Do you think it will pass? Do you think it'll get to 50 votes with Mike Pence, the vice president, being the tie-breaking vote?
Robbie, I'll be totally honest with you, which I hope I always am. And I think you know that I do my best, very best, to make sure that, that I am. But I think it's very, very close right now. There's probably a vote or so lacking. I think there's a few people on the fence that probably, if it goes to the floor, will swing and vote for it. But with such a slim, majority, you've got Susan Collins out there that has basically said no. Rand Paul has come out pretty vehemently. He's not happy with it. So we'll just have to wait and see. There's one or two people out there that will make the difference. Certainly, if it is a tie, then Mike Pence will jump in and break it. But right now, I think it's very, very close. I think there's a fair chance that it will pass, but I think there's a fair chance that it won't also.
All right, I get a bonus question here, even though I said we were on our last question. My bonus question is...
I have to take longer to answer these.
What do you think? What do you think will happen if the vote fails? Where do you think the Senate and Congress will go if Graham-Cassidy does not get the votes that it needs?
Well, I think we'll continue to try and find, some avenues to, again, I'd like to repeal and replace Obamacare. Short term, Lamar Alexander through the Health Committee, is working on some things, but it's difficult. I'm not going to vote for the answer to be more Obamacare to save Obamacare, nor am I very definitely not going to say that the answer is to give the insurance companies to bail them out even more, to make it such that this thing works. So it's a difficult situation. There's lots of people working on it, and I really am encouraged that now that that we've got the governors in play and the people through the states that are actively engaged. I think at the end of the day we'll come up with something again to repeal and replace.
All righty, Senator John Boozman, as always, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks for coming into our Springdale office for the interview.
Thank you, Robbie, so much for having me.
We're back with more right after this word from our sponsors.